Hello, everyone. We're recording. This is my workshop that I'm hosting tonight on Intentional Eating 101. Intentional eating is a framework that I put together, sort of combining a lot of research, a lot of personal experience, and a lot of working with clients and seeing what works and what doesn't. And I don't think that there is anything like it out there. And so I'm very excited to go through some of the pillars with you tonight. I'll go over kind of a lot of things at a high level, but it really does go pretty in depth. So if you're interested, I would encourage you also to join my intentional eating boot camp I'm going to be doing next week. And there's going to be each day a daily lesson and then a challenge to implement that's going to go deeper into each of the into like 5 of the things that we're talking about tonight. Okay, I am going to share my screen and pull up my slides. Okay, so here we go. So what I wanted to call this workshop is how to get the results you want without giving up your favorite foods, your social life, or your happiness. That is what I think of when I think of intentional eating. Most diets out there, you have to give up one of these things, right? Either your favorite foods like carbs or sweets or cocktails or pizza, whatever, or your social life because you have to spend all the time in the gym or prepping food, or your happiness because you have to eat cabbage soup or drink an orange detox drink for multiple days in a row. That does not bring happiness, right? So you should be able to get the results that you want, eat your favorite foods, maybe not pizza all the time, but there's definitely room for those favorite foods and treats. Have a social life and be happy. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Intentional eating, I sort of went into this a little bit before, it is applying the principles of macro and micronutrition, but not strictly tracking like Leanne was talking about. If you do the Nourish Project with me, I'll teach you how to calculate how many macros you need. And I'll talk about this later, but just in case anyone on here doesn't know, when I say macros, that means protein, carbs, and fat. Those are the 3 macronutrients that make up the building blocks of all food. And when people talk about tracking their macros, they are tracking how much protein, carbs, and fat each of everything that they eat has, keeping track of it and trying to hit certain targets for those food. It works really well for getting to your goals. But sometimes it doesn't if you don't have the right mindset. And one of those mindsets is definitely, I don't care. I don't care today if I hit my macros. It's hard to hit your macros if you decide you don't care, right? It's hard to hit your macros if you mess up because you go over. And then if you think you have to be perfect, you give up and eat the whole bag of cookies because you had 3 cookies instead of 1. Mindset, things like that are really, really important. And so that's a part of intentional eating. And then the third part that is also really important and not in many diets or food plans that I see out there is actually observing the feedback from your body to see what works for you, because we all are as different on the inside as we are on the outside. And that means our food plan to reach our goals is going to be unique to us. So when I talk about feedback, I'm talking about the scale, yes, but I'm also talking about more than the scale. I'm talking about inches on your body. Sometimes if you're building muscle and losing fat, the scale will stay exactly the same, but you will have a full body transformation and you will look amazing. Your clothes will fit better. You'll feel energized, but that scale won't budge an inch. And that's okay, right? Because the scale is just one way that we measure feedback. Is not the most important way. Other things that we look for in terms of feedback is hormonal health that manifests in things such as stress, sleep, energy, hunger, cravings, performance in the gym. How are your workouts feeling? All things like that are really important feedback that we monitor closely to say, is this food plan working for me? Yes or no. And then if it's a no, we tweak it and keep tweaking it until it keeps working. So it's that kind of continuous, try some inputs, see how they work, and then tweak it, and then just keep iterating and iterating until we find something that works for you. And then our body will shift, your goal will change, you'll get older, you'll lose weight, you need a break from being on diet, what have you. And then that whole cycle starts over again. So it's really important to know that it's just sort of like an ongoing thing of applying these basic principles, figuring out ways to do it in a way that works for you, and then paying attention to how your body responds. All that takes a lot more intentionality and a lot more thought and a lot more work than saying, cut out carbs, or don't eat after 7 o'clock, or just eat cabbage soup, right? So it's a little bit intimidating, and it's sort of hard to package it up and market it and sell it to people with a pretty bow on top, because it takes more work. But at the end of the day, you really understand how your body thrives, how to nourish your body, and what works for you. And so that's why my clients who work with me for a long time get really good sustainable results, because through that process of iteration, trying different things, tracking what's working, changing what's not, you really learn what works for them and what doesn't work for them. And at the same time, we work on all those mindset issues, like, staying consistent, what to do if you make a mistake, how to deal with going on vacation, and stuff like that. So that in a nutshell is intentional eating and what I'm going to be talking about tonight. Any questions before I move on? Nope. Okay. So I sort of made a comparison to other, it says fat diets. That did not supposed to say fat diets. It said fad diets. Most diets out there, or meal plans, I think of a diet as something that says, like, just eat this food or eat this many calories. And it's kind of like a one size fits all cookie cutter approach to telling you to do X thing to lose weight. They don't work for everyone. And there will always be like a one person that they work for that's the spokesperson. But like I said, we're so different, each of us on the inside, that we really need something that's customized to ourselves. So for example, keto works really well for people who are obese, sedentary, and haven't had like much experience with exercise or fitness. It works for those people. And even those people, it doesn't work forever. So, you can hear about these amazing weight loss results that might not work for you. Or maybe some people try keto and they just don't like it because they love carbs, or it's really too high in fat and they feel greasy and gross. Not going to work for you, right? So any of these cookie cutter fad diets that say, like, just do this thing or just do that thing, it's not going to work for everyone, and it's not going to work forever. The other thing that I compare intentional eating to is like meal plans, where you're just given a list, like, eat these foods, or pre-packaged meals. And it's here's your meal for the day, your frozen chicken and broccoli or whatever. What happens when you go on vacation? What if you have to go to dinner with your family, or on a work trip, or a networking event? You have to know how to eat to reach your goals in all these situations, because anything that's just giving you a meal plan or a prepackaged meal is really just making you dumb. It's not teaching you how to think about food or how to figure out how to nourish your body. It's just saying, eat this, don't think, and you'll get the results you want. Well, maybe if you eat everything they give you, but as soon as, life pops up and you go to the cabin for the weekend, or you go out to dinner with your family, then what? You don't know how to handle it. So I think that's a really important thing about intentional eating, as well as we talk a lot about how to navigate those social situations and make the best choice under a lot of different situations. So the trade-offs are intentional eating. It takes some work. It's a big investment in yourself and listening to your body. But the benefits are you come away really understanding nutrition, how your body thrives and what your body needs in order to meet your goals, and how to adjust that through different stages in life. Okay, I'm going to talk about the metabolism next. Is there any questions before I move on? Okay, I love talking about metabolism because it's amazing. Most people think it's like a fixed thing, like, oh, I have, like, he has a good metabolism, or like, oh, I have a bad metabolism, it's genetic. It doesn't work that way. So sorry to tell you, you do not have an excuse that like your grandmother gave you a slow metabolism, or you inherited, a bad metabolism. It actually doesn't work that way. Your metabolism is adaptable, and it's always adapting to the inputs that we give it. And I think of it as like a bonfire, where it's like a burning fire, and you want that metabolism to be strong and burning like a big strong bonfire or a wood burning stove. And the way to do that is actually to keep putting wood in the fire. If you think about it like a bonfire, once you get it burning, you have to keep putting wood in it at a regular basis. If you get it burning and then you neglect it, it's going to die down. And then when it dies down, you can save it, but you have to slowly build it back up, maybe with some newspapers and then some kindling and then like some bigger and bigger logs. So that's exactly what our metabolism is like. It always adapts to what we're giving it in terms of calories. So if this is your metabolism, it's like burning at this level, and you're giving it like, say, 2,000 calories a day, just for a standard example. And then you say, okay, I actually want to go on a diet. I want to lose some weight. So I'm going to cut down to 1,800 calories a day. Well, your metabolism, at first, you're going to lose weight because there's a deficit here between the calories and what your metabolism is burning. But really, pretty quickly, your metabolism is going to get hip to the game, and it's going to say, oh, I'm actually only getting this much. I'm going to slow down so that I'm only using what I get. I'm only requiring what I get. And you're going to stop losing weight. And that is when most people get frustrated, and they either quit and say, well, forget it, it's not working anyway, I'm just going to go back to eating like up here. And now your metabolism has slowed down. So now your metabolism is burning fewer calories, even though you just go back to where you were eating originally. And that's when you gain weight after the diet. Another thing that some people do is, if the metabolism slows down, you stop losing weight, you say, oh, shoot, I need to lose weight. I'm going to cut calories again. So you cut down from 1,800 to 1,600. And then again, you lose weight initially until that metabolism slows down. And then it slows down. And now you're eating at 1,600 calories. And your metabolism is burning at 1,600 calories a day, because that's all you're giving it. And it will keep going that way. And that is where I see a lot of clients, probably like a third to a half of my clients, maybe even more than a half, where we actually have to increase their calories, sometimes way up, to get their metabolism to start burning strong again. And they finally lose weight when we increase their calories way up. And that's because the metabolism is always adapting to what we're giving it. And it will get to a point, if you keep going lower and lower, where not only are you eating like 1,200 calories a day and you're miserable because that's not even enough food for a toddler, you're also not seeing the results you want. You're not losing weight. You're super frustrated, and you don't have energy because your metabolism is trying to save and conserve everything that it can. So I see that a lot with clients coming to me who say, I'm eating really low calorie. I've done this diet and this diet and this diet, and I just can't lose weight anymore. And that's the reason. Our metabolism has to be nourished. It has to be continually fed to keep burning strong. So the goal is really to have a healthy, adaptable, or robust metabolism. That means if you give it more calories, because one day you have a big brunch and a birthday party, it ramps up to burn those, and then it goes back to normal. One day, if you have a lower amount of calories, it kind of goes down, and then it goes back to normal. Not the opposite. An unhealthy metabolism would be something that's really rigid, and it's just burning this minimum number of calories. There are ways to boost your metabolism naturally, and this is another thing I really love to work on with clients, because rather than cutting your calories lower, you can do things to increase your metabolism and boost it up. So I won't go super in depth into all the different ways tonight, but just to name a few: eating protein boosts your metabolism, eating whole foods versus whole unprocessed foods versus processed foods will boost your metabolism. Drinking water actually boosts your metabolism. And building muscle, putting muscle on your frame builds your metabolism. And we're not really going to go into movement or exercise or fitness at all tonight, but that is why I'm such a huge proponent of strength training for women, because by building muscle, you are essentially investing in your metabolic 401k, and the muscle requires more calories. It's going to keep that metabolism high, even when you're sitting around not doing anything. Not even when you're working out. Okay, any questions about that before I move on? Nope. Okay, so next I want to talk about calories and quantity versus quality of food. So, a lot of programs, and kind of back in the day, they talk about counting calories, like, oh, I'm watching my calories, I'm counting my calories. Weight Watchers is like a point system where you get a certain number of points, which is basically like number of calories. But that, although sort of a catch-22, it is necessary to be in a calorie deficit if you want to lose weight. And fun fact, and this is why intentional eating is so important, the only way to actually know if you're in a calorie deficit is to see if you're losing weight. So it's kind of like you have to eat what you think is a deficit and then see if you're losing weight, and then monitor and look and adjust as you go. But at the same time, counting calories is not enough, and it's really not even very helpful sometimes. And this picture, I think, is a great example of why it's not enough and why it's really not that helpful. So these are two meals, or really, like, this side looks like one day of eating and the other side looks like a meal, but they're the same number of calories. One supersize meal from McDonald's, 1,820 calories. And then this whole day's worth of eating with lots of whole foods, fruits and veggies, and some water and tea is also 1,820 calories. So, just looking at these two pictures without any sort of background in nutrition or health science, it's pretty easy to say the one on the right looks like a healthy day of eating, the one on the left does not, right? So it's really important that, although calories matter and they are super important if you have a goal of losing weight or losing body fat. And by the way, the reason I say losing fat versus losing weight is because I really encourage clients to have a fat loss goal rather than a weight loss goal, because of what I mentioned before about the scale potentially staying the same if you build muscle and lose fat, but your whole body looks different, your energy is different, and you're much healthier and you feel better, but you haven't actually lost weight on the scale. So I tend to say a fat loss goal rather than weight loss goal. But regardless, if your goal is to lose weight or to lose body fat, you do have to be in a calorie deficit, but that's not enough. You also have to make sure you're getting the right quality of food and the right macronutrients. And that is where macros comes into play, and so important, because getting that right ratio of protein, carbs, and fat is the game changer for most women that I work with. And what I find is that most women come to me not eating nearly enough protein, and eating probably a little too much carbs and fat. Most women aren't actually eating way too much food or eating super unhealthy or anything like that. And they're surprised when I say the number one thing we need to do is boost up your protein. And I'll talk about what protein does and the benefits of that later, but that is really important part of paying attention to your food quality and not just the calories involved. Another really important one is fiber. I'm going to talk about fiber tonight. And fiber is super important, has tons of health benefits, and most diets completely disregard it or don't talk about the quality of food at all. Sugar is also important to know how much you're getting, and sugar and fiber are kind of the flip sides of what carbohydrates are composed of. So if you're eating carbohydrates, they usually, the more fiber, the lower the sugar, or the higher the sugar, the lower the fiber. And although again, with intentional eating and with macros, nothing is off limits, nothing is restricted. And I actually encourage all my clients to build in a treat every day so that they don't feel restricted and they don't feel deprived. The more fiber, the higher fiber you can get and the lower sugar, the better. And then it's also really important that you just make sure you're getting a good mix of micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, and also eating like a 80-20 mix of unprocessed versus processed food. So I like to say 80% food that is nourishing your body and 20% food that is nourishing your soul, right? Like the pizza, the tacos, the ice cream. It's important to have those things because food gives us pleasure. It gives us memories. It gives us special occasions, right? And so if you're not having any of those things, your life is miserable. And how long are you going to stick to that diet? Not very long, right? So finding that balance of about like 80% healthy or whole unprocessed foods and then 20% food for your soul is an important part of monitoring your food quality too. Just going to see. Oh, Leanne said, I'm so glad I pay attention to fiber. Yeah, fiber is a game changer. I feel really, really old when I say that, like I should be pouring some Metamucil in my orange juice or something, but there's a lot of things I am obsessed with now that I used to think were all for old people, like sleeping, walking, fiber. They're so good. Okay, so I'm going to get into the macro basics now, especially for those of you who are still saying, like, what the heck are macros? I still don't really understand what you're talking about. So again, macronutrients, there's 3: protein, carbs, and fat. And these 3 macronutrients are the foundation of all the food we eat. They're the building blocks of all the food, and they come together in different combinations. Some food is 100% protein or 100% carbs or 100% fat, and some are a mixture of the 2 or a mixture of all the 3. So protein is the first, it is the most important, the superhero macro. It is the building block for all living organisms. It builds, repairs, maintains muscle. And I was talking about how important that is to be always focusing on building muscle in our body. And it's used for almost every metabolic process in the body. It's also filling and satiating, which means it tastes good to eat and it keeps you filled and satisfied for a long time. So if you're eating higher protein, if you have the same number of calories equal and you're eating higher protein as opposed to higher carbs or fat, you're going to feel fuller longer when you're eating more protein. So that's really important if you're trying to eat at a lower calorie goal or be in a calorie deficit to meet a fat loss goal. The higher protein you're eating, the more you're going to feel full and satisfied and not feel the need to be snacking. The other great thing about protein is it is the thermogenic effect. As I mentioned before, it's one of those magical things that actually boosts your metabolism just by eating it. And that's because it takes a lot of energy for the body to metabolize the food and get it in a digestible form that's ready to use to become those building blocks for muscle. That takes our body doing extra work. And so it's burning calories extra just by digesting the protein. Great sources of protein are meat, fish. Is there a question? Come on. Oh, okay. Meat, fish, eggs or egg whites, protein powder. I really encourage all my clients to have a good protein powder that they can make protein shakes or add to oatmeal or add to yogurt to get that boost. I do not, recommend eating protein shakes or drinking shakes for every meal of your day. That is not a way to live, but it can be really helpful, for a quick a quick meal or a quick snack, or to boost up the protein in something. The more you can be eating whole food sources of protein, the better. But sometimes it's really hard to get all the protein that you need, or if you're on the run, you need something convenient. Having a protein bar or a protein shake or some protein powder can really help with that. The big question I always get is how much protein? How much protein do I need? 20 to 25 grams minimum per meal, with 3 or 4 meals per day. I really encourage everyone to think about meals and snacks as the same, and then kind of go from there and see what works for you. Some people like having 3 square meals a day. Some people like having 6 smaller meals, all the same size. I like having 4 meals that are all about the same size: breakfast, lunch, a snack about 4 o'clock that keeps me from getting hangry, and then dinner. So however you break that up, 3, 4, 5 meals a day, you need to have at least 20 to 25 grams minimum per meal, and aiming for 100 grams a day total. So that's just like a minimum. And I'm sure if you pay attention to where you're eating now, for most women, it's much, much lower. And just shifting that protein number is a game changer. So for so many of the women I work with, they see their energy skyrocket, they see their cravings disappear, they start losing weight even without tracking their calories, and they're happier. So it's like a win-win-win. Okay, next is fat. Fat is having like its glory day right now with keto and all that stuff. There is really nothing wrong with fat. It used to be the enemy number one, back in the 80s when everything was low fat. But now we're finding out that, there's a big difference between dietary fat and body fat. And I guess it's important to step back and say, one thing that was a huge myth before is that eating fat does not make you fat. Eating dietary fat does not automatically give you body fat. What makes you fat is eating in a calorie surplus for a consistent period of time and having consistent calorie surplus, not eating dietary fat in your diet. But it is very calorie dense. If you noticed before, protein has just 4 calories per gram. Carbohydrates has just 4 calories per gram. Fat has 9 calories per gram. So when you're, equal amounts of fat, the calories can add up pretty quickly. So it is an area to be careful about. And it can be an easy way to go over your total calorie goal for the day, but there's nothing wrong with having fat. It is also not the magic pill for weight loss. If you have succumbed to any of the keto marketing, it makes it look like, oh, if you just eat bacon and avocado for the rest of your life, you will lose weight. Like it's a magic pill. It's not a magic pill. You have to be in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight. There are a lot of things about keto that I think are very unhealthy, the way people implement them and the way that it's marketed. It's not a magic pill for fat loss. But so I'll just say fat is just like right in the middle. It's one of the 3 macronutrients. It's very important. It's not magic pill for fat loss. It's also not the enemy. What it is it's our body's secondary source of fuel. So carbs being the body's primary preferred source of fuel and energy, fat is the second one. So it's stored as body fat. Any excess is stored as body fat. And it's kind of like, if you think of that fire analogy, when you eat carbohydrates, they're quicker burning, they're converted really quickly into glucose and used by the muscles for energy and for fuel. When those run out, our body switches over to fat, which is the secondary source. So it's kind of like the big log that goes on the fire when the little kindling runs out. It takes longer to start, but it burns for longer as well. It's, in addition to being the secondary source of fuel, it is really important for things like hormone regulation, vitamin absorption, brain development, and nerve function. It serves a really protective function for our body. So women should not be eating less than 40 grams of fat per day. how much at the top end, really kind of depends on you and how many calories you're eating and your preferences and your taste and stuff like that. But never below 40 grams of fat per day. That's when it really starts to affect things like your hormonal health and vitamin absorption, stuff like that. Sources of fat, fatty meats, dairy, olive oil, bacon, coconut oil, nut butters, avocado. Avocado is a great one because it combines fiber and healthy source of fat. So it's one of my favorite foods. But like I was saying earlier, you do have to be careful with fats because even though it's quote unquote healthy, if you're tracking the macros and you're trying to hit a macro goal and stay under your calorie goal, it can add up pretty quickly. So like a bowl this big of guacamole might be a no-go, but a serving of guacamole can definitely get your taste buds satisfied and give you the fiber and the healthy fat that you need. Okay, last one, carbs. So carbs today, I feel like they're public enemy number one, but so many of my clients come to me saying, I tried keto, I hated it because I just wanted some pasta, I wanted some bread, I wanted a muffin. That is totally understandable. Carbs are delicious and our body loves carbs. It is our preferred source of fuel and it's our primary energy source. So the way that carbs work is when we eat them, the body digests them, they're converted into glucose, which is stored right in the muscles as the fast burning fuel source. Here's the kicker. Here's why people think keto works so well. 1 gram of glucose holds up to 4 grams of water. So if you eat a muffin and then it has the glucose dispersed to your muscles, and then you drink a bunch of water, each gram of glucose is going to hold 4 grams of water. So that weight on the scale is going to go up or be higher because you have this fuel in your muscles that is filled with water. It's ready to rock. Now, if you don't have that fuel because you've eliminated all carbs, your muscles are going to be depleted of energy. They're not going to have any fuel and they're not going to have any water, and you're going to be lighter on the scale. So that is why people lose like 5 pounds in a week doing keto. It's just because they don't have any fuel in their muscles and they don't have any hydration in their muscles because there's nothing there. And conversely, that's why like if you do keto and then you eat a bagel and all of a sudden you gain 5 pounds, it's because your body is starving for that fuel. And it's like, oh my gosh, give me all the fuel. I'm going to trap it and hold it right here because I was being starved. And so it thinks it was being starved and it's like holding on to everything that it can get. So that's one of my big gripes with keto. Here's the thing with carbs though, excess carbs, the ones you don't need for fuel or you don't use for fuel, are converted to body fat to be stored for that secondary source of fuel. So, with carbs, it's important to find that Goldilocks zone of not too few, but also not too many. But it is not necessary to eliminate carbs or cut them out of your life forever. Sources of carbs, I think we all know sources of carbs: bread, pasta, rice, cereal, starchy vegetables, really all vegetables, leafy greens, fruit juice, and then, candy and treats, the things that we typically think of as carbs. Fiber, I want to talk about fiber tonight. I'm not going to go into all the different types of, ways to measure the quality of food that I talked about, but fiber is a really, really important one that Leanne mentioned in the chat box. This is how, with my clients, I really measure if you're quote unquote eating healthy or not, because with the macros, you could hit your macros of protein, fiber, and carbs by eating egg whites and a donut, right? You could get lots of protein from those egg whites and fat and carbs from your donut, which, some days that's the beauty of the flexibility of tracking your macros. However, that meal is going to give you like 0 fiber. And I can look at your numbers right away and say, okay, the reason you're hungry is because you don't have any fiber. The reason you're not really seeing a ton of progress is because you don't have any fiber. Fiber is, so it's sort of a shortcut, just like the way we track steps to measure our overall movement. Fiber is a really good way to track the overall health healthfulness of the food that you're eating. And that's because when you look at the sources of fiber, this might be kind of hard for you guys to see. It's a little bit small, but we find fiber in avocado, leafy greens, other vegetables, berries, fruits and nuts, legumes, seeds, all those kind of things are rich in fiber and other macronutrients, vitamins, and minerals that we want. So by tracking fiber, it's a good way to see, are we overall hitting that healthy diet that we're looking for? It's also, by increasing fiber, is a good way to increase your metabolism. That has that same thermogenic effect that I was talking about before, because your body has to work hard to digest it. So just by eating foods that are higher in fiber versus like processed foods that are lower in fiber, even if they have the same calories and the same macros, eating the higher fiber foods or the foods that are unprocessed whole foods, which are going to be higher in fiber, that alone will increase your metabolism, and it's going to keep you feeling fuller and satisfied for longer. So it's really, really important and a really good way to be satisfied and full, even if you're trying to eat at a lower calorie number overall to hit your weight loss goal. Fiber has other important benefits too, really important, helps digestion. And I'm laughing because as my mom knows that we're struggling with poor little Vivian going to the bathroom. So she's getting her prune juice in her bottle every day. The fiber helps with your digestion, decreases bloating, lowers cholesterol. It also helps your body detox. And what it does is on the way out, it binds to fat to flush it out of the system. The fat cells are where toxins are stored. So by binding to those fat cells and helping flush it out of your system quicker, you're getting those toxins out of your body by eating higher fiber. How many grams of fiber? 25 to 30 is a really good number for women. Again, most women I am working with are much lower when they come to me. So if you look at how much you're eating and it is significantly lower, don't make that huge jump overnight. You need to kind of baby step it up to not shock your system. But aiming for that 25 to 30 grams per day is really the gold standard and will help with everything. Where to find fiber, it's in carbs. So that is another one, I guess, part two of my beef with the keto diet and this marketing concept of tracking net carbs. It totally disregards the importance of fiber and the importance of knowing your overall calories. You need to eat carbs. And a lot of time, women I'm working with, they were having digestion issues, like trouble pooping, just bloating and gas. And it's because they've been counting net carbs, which is the total carbs minus the fiber. And you can have like zero net carbs if you eat bacon, cheeseburger with no bun for every single meal, but you're not getting the fiber that you need. And that fiber is super important. So that's why I am not a fan of that net carbs concept or like keto in general. Okay, any questions about protein, carbs, fat, fiber before I move on? I want to teach you guys how to just sort of look at your plate and make a good macro balance plate, even without weighing or measuring anything.
Annie, I do have a question about carbs.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a such thing as a carbaholic? Because if I eat carbs, I can't stop. If I have a piece of bread, that's it. I got to eat it all.
Yeah, it can be very addicting. And I would say it's probably because of the sugar count. If you look at what carbs are causing you to be a carbaholic, I would guess it's not whole grain, steel cut oatmeal or whole grains or leafy greens or anything like that. It's probably the higher sugar or the more processed stuff. And so, yeah, sugar is super addictive. There's actually studies that show that it's as addictive as cocaine. So yes, it is addictive, especially the higher sugar. So I would say one thing is to just avoid things with the higher sugar counts, because it's going to spike your blood sugar. And that's why your body is calling for more and more. It goes like a spike and then a crash, and then it wants more and more. And it kind of does this like up and down over and over again. If you're going to have a treat, I would have it at the end of the day rather than at lunchtime, because then you go to bed, right? And you kind of reset the cycle. Versus if you have that treat earlier, the whole rest of the day, your body's like, give me more treats, give me more treats, give me more treats. So I would recommend to not say no sugar, no treats, no carbs, but maybe shift them more to later in the day. So to kind of limit the impact that they have. And then the third thing is making sure that you're eating every meal and every snack with that macro balanced plate that I'm about to show you. If you're eating just carbs by themselves, your body is getting that blood sugar spike and then crash, and then it's wanting more, and it's going to spike and crash and want more. If you're having a balanced plate with protein, a healthy fat, or even a piece of bacon and a moderate amount of carbs, it's going to digest them so much better and have more of a steady line for your blood sugar. So it's not going to have that spike and crash. That the spike and crash is what's causing you to want more and more. So have treats later in the day, shift to more like complex carbs with higher fiber rather than the sugar. And then if you are having them, have it as part of a macro balanced meal or snack, and that should help as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, Annie, what do you recommend for, like, a lot of those fibery foods sound like they'd make a good salad. What do you recommend for a healthy choice for salad dressing?
I like almost all salad dressings. I don't think it really matters. That's not true. Stay away from the fat-free salad dressings. That's probably, if anything, I would go for the full fat dressings over the fat-free, because they have so much fake chemicals and they put more sugar in it to make it taste good. I like, there's a lot, I don't know, there's like a lot of really good ones. There are a lot of good ones. I like, balsamic is always a safe option to sort of avoid the heavy cream ones, and stuff like that. But honestly, whatever you like can be a good salad dressing. But the important thing is get either the full fat or the reduced fat version. I like to get the reduced fat because it still tastes pretty good, like in terms of like ranch or blue cheese. It doesn't have like nearly as much chemically or added sugar as the fat-free ones. But watch how much you put on. This is where food scale really comes in handy. And if the serving is like 2 tablespoons, pay attention to how much 2 tablespoons of salad dressing is. I know sometimes I'll put like almost half the bottle before, if I'm not paying attention.
Okay.
That was more than you wanted to know.
No. Sometimes the bottle tricks you, though. You don't know if it's going to have that little tiny hole or the whole opening. So gotta watch it.
It does trick you. But just the last thing I'll say is it's really important to have fat as part of your diet. So having, all those fibrous veggies and then a good salad dressing. It just also, the other thing when you're making your salad, if you have cheese and nuts and bacon and salad dressing, that can add up to a lot of fat really quickly. So I would pick one fat source for your salad, and it's usually going to be dressing, then maybe like a little bit of cheese, but not all those things. And if you're tracking, you'll know exactly like how much you're allotted. But if you're just building your plate, pick one healthy fat to go on the salad and then enjoy it.
Okay.
So let's talk about actually how to build it. Now that we're talking about like what, a macro balanced plate should look and feel like. With my Nourish project and one-on-one clients, we go pretty in depth into actually tracking and measuring your food so that you really get an intimate, up close and thorough knowledge of what your plate should look like and how much each serving of protein should be and fat should be and stuff like that. And that is the best way to make sure that you're on track to hitting your goals and that you're in a calorie deficit. But it can be a lot for people. It can be stressful to think about weighing and measuring everything. It might just be too much, that you even feel like doing. And I've had some clients who worked with me really successfully who just sort of followed this hand formula to build a macro plate for the majority of their meals. And they really like that. So I like to share this as a way to start thinking about how much of each of these foods you should be having. So throw the food pyramid completely out the window in terms of thinking about building your plate. This is the plate that you should be building. And I think the government or even has something very similar to this that's called like My Healthy Plate or something. It's based on food groups rather than macronutrients, but it's pretty similar to this, which is good because if you remember the food pyramid, the base is all carbs. And it's I would probably like invert the food pyramid if I had the option. So, okay, let's start with the most important, protein. So protein should be about the size of the palm of your hand or a deck of cards. That's generally 20 to 25 grams if it's meat. If you are vegan or vegetarian, there's lots of vegan or vegetarian sources of protein, tofu, tempeh, yogurt if you're vegetarian, dairy if you're vegetarian, beans, nuts, and legumes are good sources if you're vegan or vegetarian. If you are not vegan or vegetarian, I really encourage you to not think of beans, legumes, nuts, hummus, stuff like that as a source of protein because it is extremely high in carbs. And that's great. Like I said, carbs are not the devil, but it's more of like a carb with lots of fiber and a little bit of protein rather than a protein source. So when I'm talking about protein, I'm talking about meat, fish, dairy, tofu or tempeh, stuff like that. So protein, palm of your hand, fat, about the size of your thumb. So if you're thinking about this much avocado, not like the bowl of guacamole, right? This much butter, this much cheese, maybe, this much salad dressing. It's not that much. And, but I'm not saying no fat, right? I'm saying like this much is a good amount. The vegetables you can think of as like two hands, like a bowl. Like you make your hand a bowl of vegetables. Every single meal. This is, and then fruit or starchy vegetables the size of your fist, right? So think about some of our traditional meals, the standard American diet. Pizza, does it look like this? No. Pasta bowl? No. Rice bowl? No. It's really a new kind of revolutionary way for most of us to think about building that plate. It's protein, fiber is going to be in all those non-starchy vegetables, and then a healthy fat to kind of add the flavor, and then fruit or starch for carbs. And that is what your plate should look like most of the time. Any questions about that? No? Okay. It's and then that adds up. So this sort of shows if you have this hand formula and how it adds up to one plate, right? The palm of your hand, the closed fist for the carbs, and then thumb for fat. It adds up to like 100 grams of protein per day if you're having this 4 times a day, and about what you need for general macros. Now, like I said in the beginning, everyone's actual macro targets, if you want to get really specific and you really have health, fitness, weight loss goals, they're totally custom to your age, your dieting history, your activity level, your preferences, all that stuff. So this is just a general recommendation to get started. Okay, 2 more things I just want to mention. I don't have time to go super in depth on them, but these are both things that I go really in depth, entire modules on in the Nourish Project if any of you want to join me for that. But it's really important when you're doing intentional eating that you learn how to practice these things so that you can implement them when you're out wandering freely in the public, so that you can have a social life, so that you can have fun, so you don't feel like, oh, I'm not allowed to go to happy hour because I'm on a diet. You're allowed to go to happy hour. You're allowed to go on vacation and have fun. You're allowed to go do whatever you want to do. But the most important thing that I just drill over and over again is mindset plus preparation equals success. So if you're going to a restaurant, or really any of these things, happy hour, traveling, vacation, what are you there for? I would guess no matter what it is, you're not there to eat and stuff yourself silly. Even if you're going out to dinner, I bet you're going to have a great experience. You're going to connect with other people. You're going to celebrate a special occasion. You're there to meet new contacts. You're there to relax and feel good. So keeping in mind, like, what is the purpose of this social event or this activity? Is it to make memories, to connect with other people, to commemorate special occasions? Cool. Okay, now let's separate that from our food, right? The food, the mindless eating, we always do this at this thing. You can separate that and say, okay, how can I achieve the purpose of this social event while still staying on track for my goals? And then the preparation, one of the ways to stay prepared is to not go hungry. I always think of Scarlett O'Hara in the beginning of Gone with the Wind. Love that movie or hate it. It's obviously pretty controversial now, but I remember the beginning when she has to eat, like put on her corset and then eat a whole chicken dinner before she can go to the party, because her nursemaid doesn't want her to look like fatty and be like eating all the food in front of the gentleman that she's trying to get married off to, right? Obviously things are different today, but the same principles kind of apply. You don't want to go to a party or a happy hour or a networking event starving, because then of course you're going to get all the tray pass appetizers and everything that you can find is going to be so appealing to you. Even going out to eat at a restaurant, maybe have a quick protein shake or a little snack before you go so that you're not ravenous and end up eating the whole bread bowl. Another thing for, when you're going out to eat or on vacation, especially, is trying to eat the same as you do in your normal life. If you're on a road trip, maybe bring along the food that you would normally eat during that time of day. If you're going to visit family or you're going to stay somewhere for vacation, can you go grocery shopping and get the food that you need rather than relying on restaurants all the time? How much can you make the food that you eat on your daily life the same or similar when you're having these fun events, so that you can still be on track to meet your goals, but also enjoying the fun of it? And part of that is eating food that you like every day, so that you don't feel like, oh my gosh, I need a break from this restrictive diet. That's why I really like and encourage my clients to build in treats, to eat the food that they like, and just tweak it so that they're getting enough protein and the right number of carbs and fat, so that you don't feel like you have to take a break from your diet, or that you need a week-long cheat day or cheat week when you go on vacation, but that you are generally happy with the food that you're eating and how it makes you feel, and you don't really need a break from it so much as maybe other diets where you feel like, oh, I'm just like doing this juice cleanse until I can go to this wedding, and then I'm going to go nuts because I haven't had anything to eat in 3 days, right? Okay, the last thing I want to mention is really important to remember that your metabolism is always adjusting. Like the first thing we talked about tonight, it's always adjusting to what you're giving it. And so that's why, I teach my clients all the ways to make sure that we're kind of tricking our metabolism, but not in a bad way. We're like keeping it strong and healthy. It's kind of like the Aladdin song. I don't know if you guys, that's my generation, like the Aladdin song where he's like one step ahead of the hitman. You're like always staying like one step ahead of your metabolism. So carb cycling and diet breaks are 2 ways that we do that. And that essentially means you eat in a caloric deficit for a while and then you go higher. So it gets that metabolism revving back up. Carb cycling is a short increase, a couple days. Diet breaks could be a week, 2 weeks, or even a couple months, depending on what you need. Reverse diet is the same thing. After you've been eating low calorie for so long that metabolism slows down and you have to slowly build that metabolism back up. That is really important. Most diets don't have an exit plan. They just end or you just quit. And then your metabolism is down here because you've been eating down here with your calories. All of a sudden you quit the diet, you're up here, and now you're eating a huge surplus. So having that baby step up to ramp your metabolism back up is really important as well. And then the last thing to keep in mind is that our metabolism is always adjusting to other things too. When your weight changes, your metabolism changes. When your age changes, your metabolism changes. When your activity level changes, or when your own health goals change. Maybe your goal used to be to burn fat, but now it's actually to build muscle. You're going to need different amounts of protein, carbs, and fat. And so having a program that adjusts for all those things is really important. Obviously, I don't have time to go into that tonight. We're already a little bit over time, but that is part of what I do with my clients. And one reason that they get those sustainable results because they know how to adjust their plan over time as everything changes. Whew. Okay, ladies, that's all I have for you tonight. That was a lot. It was a really high level overview. I really appreciate you being here. I would love to stay and answer any questions. And I also just want to put in one more plug. If you're interested in this, I really encourage you to sign up. It's going to be free as well, but it's my intentional eating 1-week boot camp starting next week, where we're going to I'll do a little lesson more in depth on one element each day and then a challenge to implement that and see how your body responds. So any questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to actually just stop the recording. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great night.
Annie, are you going to